Come on, 2, 3.
Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Monday, May 23rd, 2022. And our top story today, loan forgiveness, a reminder about 2 student loan waiver programs. Joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Betsy Mayotte is the founder of the Institute of Student Loan Advisors. Betsy, thanks so much for joining us on the program again this morning.
Nice to be back.
And I mean that in a very positive way. I mean, just that there's voluminous amounts of information coursing through your brain about student loans that finds its way on the Institute of Student Loan website that people should check out. All right, so we're not going to talk about forgiveness. That's kind of a contentious issue. That's still to be debated in the Congress, the executive branch. But we're going to talk this morning about waivers and how you get waivers. And why don't you kick off the conversation? What do I need to do to qualify to get a waiver on my student loan?
So, there has been all this talk about whether President Biden is going to do broad student loan forgiveness, as you mentioned. But what is sort of missing in some of these headlines and some of these debates is some of the actions this administration has already taken that has resulted in people getting forgiveness of their student loans, and if not getting actual forgiveness, getting them a lot closer to that with existing programs. So one program that you and I have talked about several times is public service loan forgiveness. And there used to be a lot of chatter about whether that program was fraught with peril and that supposedly less than 1% of people that applied ever got it. Last October, the Biden administration announced a temporary waiver for public service loan forgiveness that essentially puts a lot of the rules temporarily to the side and allows people to get a lot of qualifying payments that they would not have qualified for before towards public service loan forgiveness. And that so far has resulted in about 70,000 people getting immediate forgiveness of their loans, and to put under public service loan forgiveness. To put that in perspective, prior to October, only about 17,000 people have gotten forgiveness. So this waiver, in a really short amount of time, has made a huge difference in people's lives. And the way to see if you qualify for that, you do have to have been working for either a qualifying nonprofit employer or a government employer, and that's federal, state, local, or tribal, for 10 years. And you would need to submit proof of that eligible employment. And some people would also be required to consolidate. So that's one of the waivers. And that one expires October of this year. And just to be clear for your listeners, that's a hard stop. There is no grace period to that. And that's because of the limited authority the president has to do a waiver like this.
Betsy, just before you continue, if I fall into that category that you're describing, I work for a public entity, a tribal entity, something like that, where do I find information on this? Do I have to go to the Department of Education website? Is there another site? How do I find the details that you're describing if I'm a visual learner?
Yeah, so I am also a visual learner, so I appreciate that
Me
question.
too.
So there's 2 places that I would recommend. The Department of Education's website has information about traditional public service loan forgiveness as well as the temporary waiver, and that website is studentaid.gov. And then I'm not going to call this a shameless plug because there's no shame to it, but we've worked really hard to put the details of this waiver on our own website, which is freestudentloanadvice.org, and including explaining how the waiver works. We've also added a really extensive FAQ document that includes some case studies to really address some of the particular areas of confusion that have cropped up with this waiver. So I would recommend, and of course people can always email us for free if they have further questions about it.
And you're free to do any plug you want because you have a very important service to offer people. And I think just for the audience's benefit, you've been educating financial professionals people in and around the industry about student loans because it's such a prevalent need. Just for the sake of time, Betsy, let's talk about the other waiver. She mentioned the public service, what's it, the PSLF waiver, is that correct?
Perfect. Yep, that's what it's called.
All right, I finally got it. It took me 3 shows, but I got it. Now let's talk about let's talk about the other kind of waiver that people can kind of zoom in on it.
So more recently, as in just a couple weeks ago, the Department of Education announced another waiver specifically for people that are pursuing forgiveness under any of the income-driven plans. So there are 5 of those income-driven plans. They're all exactly the same except where they're different. Collectively, we call them the IDRs, so the income-driven plans. So under those plans, if you make either 20 or 25 years, depending on the plan, payments that are all based on your income, if there's a balance left at the end, then your balance is forgiven. Now, those plans have come, the earliest one cropped up in 1994. It was hardly used at all. But then the more recent ones were implemented in 2009, 2012, 2015. What this waiver does is it gives the borrower credit for every month that they've been in repayment, regardless of whether they were under an income-driven plan. Now, this is going to be treated as a one-time adjustment. We don't know when they're going to do it yet. We're getting an idea that they might start working on that in the fall. And the deadline for that, we're not sure. They sort of announced this one before it was fully baked. So we are still waiting for additional guidance, but it looks like the deadline they're thinking is going to be right around January. So we have information about that waiver on our website as well. But again, borrowers should keep in mind that we are still waiting. They announced that a little prematurely. So they might have questions that we can't answer yet because we're still waiting for guidance from the feds.
Yes. It's funny how that works sometimes, trying to get out in front. It's, get these programs out. People need help, Betsy. Let's be clear. Restarting of loan repayments, there's inflation. I mean, you and I both experience this each and every day, just like every other American. High food prices, gas prices, cost of goods gone up significantly. So it's really important to look at all your financials, your budget, but also how you can mitigate the impact of student loans. Can you pay them off early? Can you invest and look at programs that are existing today or will exist to help manage all this?
Right.
Yeah.
I do think the inflation may, depending on where we're at in the next month or so, I think that could lead to another extension of the payment pause. I think the chances are creeping up on that, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're still going to have to talk at some point about the loan forgiveness as that kind of meanders its way from the executive branch into the Congress and that conversation happens. Betsy, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, how employers can help their employees with their student loan repayments. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're talking this morning to Betsy Mayotte of the Institute of Student Loan Advisors. Betsy, thanks as always for staying with us this morning.
Yeah, sure thing.
All right, so we talked about the waivers and of student loan repayments, and people should certainly check that out at the Institute's website, freestudentloanadvice.org, or the Student Aid website. Let's shift gears. Betsy, what's in it for employers to help their employees with student loans?
I love that question.
Well, it's a softball, I think, and you're the student loan queen, so I'm going to ask you.
I have been working in the student loan industry and working with consumers and doing outreach and advocacy work for over 25 years now. And I've come to the conclusion that one of the best ways to help educate and support student loan borrowers is through the employer. But you ask the best questions. So what's in it? Why would the employer do that? I've done a lot of research on this, and over 53% of employees, and that's probably higher now because of the current inflation, are experiencing personal financial stress. And that translates into dollars for the employer. Because if you have employees that are experiencing personal financial stress, they're calling in sick more often, their productivity is lower, you as the employer are processing more administrative wage garnishment requests, which can be expensive. The studies show that even incremental personal finance support of an employee can translate into a positive dollar bottom line for the employer. And the thing is, the really nice thing is that it doesn't have to cost the employer really any money. From the student loan perspective, there are some employers that offer student loan repayment benefit, and that is absolutely helpful. And it is a very strong recruitment and retainment tool. But it could just, I also know a lot of, we were talking about PSLF earlier. I'm seeing a lot of public service loan forgiveness eligible employers just simply providing PSLF education, which could just be an email with a link to our website or the Department of Education's website saying, do you know that by working here, you're potentially eligible for this program? Or here are some other resources to help support you for your student loan. And again, that doesn't have to cost the employer anything, but it helps ameliorate some of that personal financial stress, which is a positive thing to the employer's bottom line.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really important point, the mental health aspect of this. Coming through the pandemic, which created mental health challenges for many people, in addition to health challenges, the financial health, but all of that plays into our day-to-day lives, whether we're handling our children, whether we're going to a job. So it's really, to your point, in the best interest of the employer to help out. And I like where you're going with this in that it doesn't necessarily mean that the employer has to pay off the loan. They can do that. There are loan matching programs for loan repayments, and some of that exists today. But the educational value that you can deliver. Look, people go to their employers. That's usually the first place, Betsy, outside of your site, that people are going to go for information about not only benefits, but things that impact them on a day-to-day basis. Pharmacy prescriptions, healthcare, and student loans.
they're a trusted agent is what it comes down to. And while they're going back to PSLF as a good example, while the Department of Education has put out a ton of information about this waiver, and so have we, who on a daily basis goes and says, "Oh, I wonder what's new on the Department of Ed website"? Nobody. So which is why an employer, as a trusted agent, they've got the attention of this group. They really have employers in general have the potential to make a real impact on the student debt crisis just by being a trusted agent for the information that these consumers need to effectively manage their loans.
And let's be clear here, Betsy. It's not just, people think of student loan, they think of younger, recent college graduates, but it's not. It is parents, grandparents, people that co-sign for these student loans. They could be my age, our age. They could be older than that, right? So it is a multi-generational component to the workforce. So it's not just what we would preconceive as younger people.
You're absolutely right. We've talked about this before, but this is another education point, I think, for a lot of employers. Half of all borrowers are over 30, a quarter are over 45. And the fastest growing population with student debt, of course, are the over 65s.
Yeah, I mean, it just, there needs to be, I'm a bit firm believer like you in education. I think the more you can educate people, arm them with the information that they need to make the best decisions based on their circumstances, the better off an employer is going to be, the better off all of us, the better off society is going to be. The last thing, I think the last number was $1.6 trillion in student loan debt alone. I don't know, Betsy, if we've even eaten into any of that. I think it's probably only gone up.
Well, especially considering that the vast majority of federal student loan borrowers haven't been due for payment for the last 2 years. I think you're right. I think that it has gone up. And, they just announced the interest rates for new federal loans to be being made next year. And that's based on the market. And of course, inflation, those interest rates are higher than they have been in years. So it's not getting any better.
No, it's not. Let me ask you one last question here, Betsy. What about helping, your organization does this, but what about employers helping parents, grandparents with the education selection process? So at the initiation of the student loan. So we're talking about addressing the problem with student loan, repaying student loan, educating employees, the benefit there. But what about, hey, I want to send my kid off to college. How do I do that? Do I take advantage of a 529? Do I take the student loan, either the federal student loan or a private student loan? That seems to be kind of nipping the problem, one of the problems at the bud.
For sure. There are other nonprofits out there whose focus is that very thing. We call it, they work on the front end, I work on the back end. Mappingyourfuture.org is one that I recommend. They have very, very similar values as we do, in meaning that the consumer is never charged. They're experts. They've been around for a long time. They know their stuff. And their focus is to help families figure out how to pay for college, preferably without debt. They have a lot of really great interactive training modules and education right on their website as well. So there's other organizations out there that here in Massachusetts, there's also You Aspire, who focuses on that, and they're another nonprofit that is sort of safe to check out. There are also, in almost every state that I'm aware of, there are free FAFSA nights that are put on by college and university financial aid officers where you can go and get some really good advice as well, and those are always free.
Yep, and all of this helps with productivity, just kind of tying it back into the employer helping the employee. Betsy Mayotte, always a pleasure chatting with you. Great stuff, great content. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thank you.
That wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to? Drop us a line, and don't forget, for all the latest curated news in lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check our latest content, or visit our website and our streaming partners. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN AM. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Waiting here, fight
Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.